Hey everyone, welcome to this Tinkercad session. Today we are going to learn about the 3D design process in Tinkercad. So when we start using Tinkercad, you would come to the front page like this and you have to make an account for yourself. If you have a Google account, you can sign in through Google, or you can even create an account for yourself as an educator or just as a user. Once you are in the account, you would see that there is a top right button which says create. So we click on that and click on 3D design. Then we see that our design workspace opens up. So in this workspace, what you see is you have a work plane, right? So this is a work plane with a specific measurement grid that's already provided on it. It says that the unit right now is in millimeters. You can change these settings if you want by clicking on settings on the bottom right corner over here. So if you click on settings, you can see that you can go into units. You can change the units to whatever you like. You can change the scale, and you can also change the size of the work plane. So right now it's set to 200 cross 200 for the work plane, but I can also make it larger. So if I want, I can make it like 500 millimeters by 500 millimeters. Okay, so that way my workspace became much larger. And what we also see that the snap grid setting right now is set to 1 millimeter. What this really means is that each subgrid is 1 millimeter cross 1 millimeter. And if you place an object onto the work plane, and when you move it or when you increase its length or decrease its measurements, it's all going to change in 1 millimeter step sizes. All right. So now that we know the basic work plane, the next thing we have to understand is the view. So here on top left, we have the view that we want to look at. Right now, it's in a three-dimensional way. So you are able to see both top and the front side. But as I put the objects onto the workspace, we can manipulate the view from this point as well. On the top right, we have a ruler tool. So this ruler tool allows you to change the shapes dimensions very easily. And I will show that how to do that soon. Along with that, you have a shapes panel for basic shapes. And here you can see that there are a lot many other things already pre-decided into your shapes panel or pre-designed. So you can use those as you need. Okay, so let's start building something onto this workspace and see how we can manipulate objects. So first what I do is I bring in a box and I place it at the center over here at the origin, which is 0, 0. Now we are working in three dimensions, so there are three axes. So the horizontal is the x-axis, vertical is the y-axis, and up and down will be the z-axis. Now, if I want to change the dimensions of my shape, there are multiple ways I can do that. So here, if I zoom in, you can see that there are these white circle dots on each corner. So if you click on one of them, you can stretch it in that direction. So this way, right? Or you can also use these middle black dots to stretch the entire edge in the direction. So if I click on this dot, you can see that the whole edge is going to move uniformly. Similarly, it happens towards the sides as well. Okay, so those are the things you can use to change the size of the object in X and Y direction. Now, in order to change the height, what we are going to do is we are going to rotate the view by manipulating this top left button over here. And we see that there is a white dot at the top, and this shows the height of the object right now. So I can click on it and hold, and I can change the height as well. So I can make it taller, shorter, whatever I need. The other easier way to do this is if you bring in this ruler tool from the panel and you can place it on one of the corners over here. And this way you can see all the dimensions as they are. And then you can just click on them and you can change to whatever size you need. So I'm just clicking on it and I'm changing the dimensions of my box. So that's also an easier way to change the size of the object as well. All right. So now that we have seen how we can manipulate the object's size and dimensions, the next thing we want to consider is how to move the object in the z direction up and down. So for this, you have this conical arrow over here. We can see this cone. So if you click on this cone, hold it, you can move the object up in the air. or down at the bottom. And the way you know it's moving is like when you move it and you release your mouse, you will see a shadow. That way you know it's up in the air. Now, if I want to look at the object from the just the front view, I can click on the front on the top left, and I have the object just in the front view. So front view is a two-dimensional view, so you're going to see a square instead of a box. Similarly, if I just rotate it, I can rotate the object and look at it in 3 dimensions, or I can look at it from top view, and again I will see a two-dimensional shape right now. Okay, so once now we have seen how to move the object up and down, next let's see how we can rotate the object as well. So for rotation, there are multiple arrows that are shown over here. So this is an arrow for the ZX plane. This arrow is for the ZY plane, and then this arrow is for the XY plane. So if I click on this, I try to rotate, you will see that my object is rotating in the XY plane only. Similarly, if I click on this, it's going to rotate in the YZ plane only. And similarly, this will move it in the XZ plane. So you can use these arrows to rotate your object the way you want it to rotate. Okay, now once we have learned this, now let's understand what other features are there in Tinkercad. So I'm going to bring this down to the bottom. And the next thing we are going to see is how we can group two objects together. So now on this box, I am going to bring a pyramid. So I'm going to drag the pyramid and I'm going to place it right on top over here. Okay, so now I have the pyramid and I have the cube. What I can do is I can press Control A, that way it selects both the objects. And over here we can see this is the union group icon. So you can press Control G or you can click on this and you will see that now both the objects, the cube and the pyramid, have become a singular object and it has changed colors to a uniform red color. That way you know that they are now one object. So they are grouped completely together. If you want to ungroup them, you just click on this and then you say ungroup, which is this icon over here. And you can see that it has now ungrouped them again into two separate objects. Okay, so I'm going to group them again. So I'm going to either drag and select everything, or you can do Control A and then you can press the union group icon over here, and this way it has grouped into one object. Now next let's see how we can mirror it, right? So you have the mirror icon over here. So if I click on this and I say mirror, you can see that it has shifted the object and mirrored it. Okay, so this way you can also use the mirror setting as well. All right. So the next thing what we are going to do is, sometimes what happens is you have many complex shapes and it's hard to work with so many complex shapes in the work plane. For example, now I have a cube. If I want to place something inside the cube, the best thing I can do is I can either make this cube not be appearing. So for this, what I can do is I can click on this bulb icon over here, so it will hide this one and you will not just see it, so that it's easier for you to work. And then if you click on the light back bulb again, you will see the object come back. So for example, let's consider this to be like a hut, and inside the hut I want to place, like for example, some furniture. Then what I can do is I can select hide for this object, and then here I can search for like a chair. Okay, and if there is no chair, we can search for a sofa or a table, right? So let's do a table. It doesn't look like it's showing, so let me look in community. And then okay, so we do see a table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this table, and we can see that it's much bigger than what our house shape is. So I'm going to just make it very small. Okay, and I'm going to reduce the height quite a bit. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it over here where our house is, and then I'm going to see everything. So now we see that the house is there and there's a table inside. but you can see that the table hasn't fully gone inside. So I'm going to move it further inside. Okay. All right. Now we see that I'm not able to like see the table, right? I only have the house here. So in order to see what's inside the house, I can also make this object transparent. So if we click on the solid and we see transparency mixed or on, then we can see what's inside my house as well. So this way it's easier for you to work with when you have lot many complex shapes. Okay, so now that we have seen how to work with an object, how to make a union, we are next going to see how to align multiple objects so that it's much easier for us to do it in one shot rather than moving the objects separately, each of themselves. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to go to basic shapes and I am going to add another cube over here. Okay, and what I really want to do is I want the both the cubes to be aligned together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this object and then I'm going to click on the cube, and then this is the align tool over here, so I'm going to click on that. Okay, so we see that there are multiple dots that appear. So let's see what happens when we click on each of the dots. Okay, so when you are clicking on this left front dot, what's really going to happen is your this cube is going to move and align with this object over here. When you click on the center dot, they both are aligning and coming in the center. And when I click on this dot, this object is going to move to this spot, right? So if you just hover your mouse on these holes, you will see what's going to happen. Similarly, if I click on these in the y direction, they will align, but I think they are already aligned in the y direction, so nothing will happen. Okay, so now let's try to align them both in the center. So we see that both the objects came in the center. And if I want to do undo, I can do just press undo. Okay, so what I'll do just to show you alignment in the y direction, I am going to move this further ahead in the y direction, and then we will look at it from this side. Then I'm going to press Control A and do the align tool. So now we can see that I can align them together on all corners. So if I click on this one, this whole thing moves here, right? And now they are aligned in the y direction. Okay, now let's look at the z direction. So we can also move them up and down. So by changing this, clicking on these vertical dots, we can move them up in the air or down bottom. Okay, so this way you can also align the objects very easily in all three different axes. So now that we have learned how to do the basic shape manipulation, let's see how we can make more complex shapes. So now, for example, if I want to like cut a hole in this cuboid over here, how can I do that? So for that, I have some predefined hole shapes over here. So there's cube, there's cylinder, and there's a sphere, which is defined as a hole. But I'm just going to bring a sphere in. Okay, so I'm going to keep it over here on top of the cube, and then I am going to move it inside the cube. Okay, so I'm going to move it inside, right? And then I'm going to make the cube hidden so I can work with the sphere. Now for this sphere, it is defined as a solid object. What we want to do is we want to define it as a whole such that Tinkercad knows that when it combines multiple objects, this looks like a whole. So I'm going to change this to a whole and you can see the color change it to gray. Okay, so now I unhide all objects. Then I select the cube and the sphere together, and then I say union. So when I do union, you can see that there is a hole created inside my cube. But we can't really see the hole because the sphere was completely inside. So we are unable to see the hole. So what should we do in that case? In that case, I'm going to press undo and I'm going to make this a little larger. So I'm going to make the diameter 30 and the height also, I'll make it 30. Okay. Then I'm going to align both these objects such that the sphere and the cuboid are center to center. So this way, okay. And then I'm going to move this down like this, okay. So that way it looks this way. Okay, great. Now I'm going to define it as a whole, and then I'm going to select everything and I'm going to group it. So then you can see that my cube is now cut and I have a hole in my cube. So this is the way you can create holes and gaps of shapes that you want inside a bigger shape in Tinkercad. So this is another way to develop more complex shapes that you need. Now, but one place where you can use this is that if you want to build a house and you want to make windows and doors, then you would do this grouping of a whole and solid object together in order to make the cutouts that you want for your object. Great. So now that we have seen this, next what we are going to see is how we can write stuff and how we can also draw things on our own in Tinkercad. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these structures, and then we are going to bring in text. So we are going to bring a text icon over here. Okay, so for this text icon, I can, when I click on it, I can change whatever I want to write here. So for example, if I want to write hello, I can do that. I can change the height of the font, so I can make this fatter, right, or thinner. So I'm going to keep it at 10. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color to, let's say, green. All right. So here I can make it bigger or smaller. Again, either we can change the size from here, or we can also use these dots to stretch, to make it thinner, etc. Right. So this way. Okay, so now it's lying flat on the ground. I want to rotate it and make it vertical. So what I'm going to do is I am going to rotate it in the YZ plane such that it becomes vertical. So I'm going to rotate it by 90-degree, and then I'm going to see the front view and I can see that now it's vertical. One thing to keep in mind is when you place an object on the work plane, it's symmetrically half below the work plane and half is above the work plane. So what we are going to do is we are going to use this cone and we are going to bring it up such that the bottom of the shape aligns with my workspace floor. Okay, so this way you can create text as you need as well. Next, what we are going to see is how we can draw things in Tinkercad. So there is this scribe tool. So if you click on scribe, another, and place it over here, another window pops up. So in this window, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw something that I want. For example, if I want to write hello in cursive, I can do that. So I'm going to say hello in cursive, and then I'm going to press done. So when I press done, you can see that it has now, my writing has come as a 3D object in Tinkercad. And what I can do then is I can again change the size of it to what I want, right? Or I can make it thinner, and I can also change the color to whatever I need it to be. Okay, so I'm going to make it like dark green, for example. I can keep it transparent. I can make it transparency off, etc. And then I can also click on it and I can make it look vertical. So I'm going to rotate it in YZ plane by 90-degree and then see the front view and it looks vertical. And then we can move it up as well. So this way you have written something that you would like in your design, right? So we are going to do a simple task now. I'm going to bring in a cube and I'm going to draw a design on it and make a cutout of that design. So what we will do is we'll bring a cube, okay, and we will place it at the origin and we'll make it large in all directions this way. Then I'm going to bring the scribe tool and place it on top. And here I am going to draw a heart. and say done. And then we have a heart on top of my box. Now we have to keep in mind that the heights of the objects are very important. So the height of my cube is 20 and the height of my heart is 10. So I'm going to make this 25. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the box transparent so that I can see what's going on and look at the front view. And then I'm going to move my heart below such that most of it is within the box and some of it is above for us to work with. Next, I'm going to make this heart a hole. So I define it as a hole and I am going to make it larger as well. So I'm going to stretch it out in both directions this way. And then if I look at it from the top, if I click on the top view, it looks something like this. So I'm going to make it larger on this side as well, on this side as well. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control A and then I'm going to Union, and that way my box now has a heart scribed into it, right? And then I can make this transparency off so we can see that how my heart cutout has come. All right, so now this is your one object and you can like make it less in height if you want, and that way the whole thing becomes much thinner. So this is a great way to make designs that you want, cutouts that you want in three-dimensional shape. So I think we have covered a lot of things in this video. We saw how to bring an object onto the workplace, how to change its dimensions, how to rotate the objects in different planes. Then we also learned about union, how to combine two objects together, how to ungroup objects, how to align them, and then how to use text and scribe tools to define your own designs as well. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video and learned quite a bit of the basics of Tinkercad in 3 dimension. If you are interested in checking out more such educational videos, please do subscribe to our channel. And in the next video, I'm going to be going through the Tinkercad circuits module. So stay tuned for that as well. Thank you so much for watching.